Paris, France, September 24, 1992. The Bercy Arena glowed with the particular energy that emerges when extraordinary circumstances bring legendary artists into unexpected alignment. The occasion was the European launch of the Heal the World Foundation, Michael Jackson's recently established charitable organization focused on improving the lives of children globally. What had been planned as a press conference and modest ceremonial event had evolved, through a series of serendipitous developments, into a unique performance opportunity. Michael, then 34, was in the midst of his dangerous world tour, which had arrived in Paris for a series of sold-out stadium shows. The European announcement of his foundation had been scheduled during this tour stop, leveraging the international media attention already focused on his performances. What transformed this relatively straightforward promotional event into something historic was the coincidental presence of Prince in Paris. At 34, he too was touring Europe, having just released his 14th studio album and the formation of his new backing band, the New Power Generation. Though his show dates in Paris had concluded the previous week, he had remained in the city to collaborate with several French musicians on potential future projects. The two artists, often positioned as rivals by press narratives despite their distinct musical approaches, had crossed paths occasionally at industry events throughout their parallel careers. Their interactions had been characterized by careful mutual acknowledgement rather than genuine connection. Their relationship shaped more by external comparisons than personal exchange. When Prince learned of the Heal the World event through his French contacts, he made an unexpected gesture that caught both his and Michael's teams by surprise. He offered to make a personal appearance in support of the foundation's mission. Given their carefully maintained professional distance over the years, this proposition created immediate logistical and diplomatic challenges for both camps. Michael's team, protective of the meticulously planned foundation launch, expressed initial hesitation. Prince's representatives, accustomed to navigating their artists' spontaneous decisions, worked to facilitate the offer while acknowledging the sensitivity of the situation. What moved the conversation from polite negotiation to genuine collaboration was Michael's personal response when finally informed of Prince's proposal. "If he wants to support the children, how could I say no?" Michael had replied, his soft-spoken voice carrying the genuine commitment to the cause that had motivated the foundation's creation. This simple statement, cutting through the complex industry dynamics that had long surrounded both artists, established the framework for what would follow. The original plan for the foundation announcement had included a brief acoustic performance by Michael, one or two songs in a stripped-down arrangement that would emphasize the humanitarian rather than entertainment aspect of the event. With Prince's involvement, this modest musical element evolved into something more significant, though still intimate by the standards of either artist's typical productions. The Bercy Arena, already prepared for Michael's full concert the following evening, was adapted for this unexpected collaborative appearance. The stage was reconfigured to a more minimal setting: a grand piano, several acoustic guitars, basic percussion, and a small string section comprising local musicians. The invited audience of approximately 3,000 included foundation partners, European dignitaries, select media representatives, and a carefully chosen group of children from various Parisian charitable organizations. Backstage, in the hour before the event began, Michael and Prince occupied separate preparation areas, each surrounded by their own support teams. The careful maintenance of personal space reflected not hostility but the particular rituals each had developed throughout their careers, the private centering process necessary before offering themselves to public view. Their first direct interaction that day occurred just minutes before they were scheduled to appear, in a small anteroom adjacent to the stage. Those present, a handful of essential personnel from both camps, described a moment of genuine connection beneath the expected professional courtesy. "Thank you for doing this," Michael said, his characteristic gentle tone conveying sincerity beyond the simple words. Prince's response carried his typical economy of expression but equal authenticity. "The foundation's work matters. I'm glad to help." This brief exchange established the foundation for what would follow, a shared commitment to the cause that transcended the industry narratives that had long positioned them as rivals rather than potential collaborators. The event began with formal introductory remarks from foundation representatives and several European officials, establishing the organizational mission and specific initiatives being launched across the continent. Michael then took the stage alone, speaking with the passionate conviction that always emerged when he addressed the welfare of children, the subject that most reliably transformed his often shy public persona into one of clear-eyed advocacy. He introduced the first musical segment by connecting it directly to the Foundation's purpose. This song was written about trying to heal the divisions in our world. Tonight, it's dedicated to the children we're all here to serve. Seated at the grand piano, an instrument he played privately but rarely in public performances, Michael began a gentle, introspective rendition of Heal the World. Without the production elements that characterized the album version, the song's essential message emerged with particular clarity, its straightforward plea for compassion and action serving as perfect embodiment of the Foundation's mission. As the first verse concluded, Prince emerged from the side of the stage, carrying an acoustic guitar. Without introduction or explanation, he joined the performance, not taking over but adding a complementary layer, his guitar work providing subtle harmonic depth beneath Michael's vocals and piano. The integration was seamless, suggesting a musical understanding that transcended their limited direct interaction. The audience, already moved by the purpose of the gathering and Michael's emotional delivery, responded to this unexpected collaboration with a particular quality of attention, the focused silence that acknowledges witnessing something both excellent and rare. When the song concluded, the applause carried not just appreciation but a kind of grateful wonder at the unprecedented pairing. What followed was described by French cultural minister Jacques Lang, who was present that evening, as one of those sacred moments in artistic life when something transcends entertainment to become genuine communion, between the artists themselves and between them and everyone present. Prince and Michael remained on stage together, joined by the small string section and percussionists. They moved through several songs, some from each of their catalogs, each reinterpreted through a more intimate acoustic arrangement that emphasized the compositional strength beneath the production styles for which both were known. Throughout this segment, observers noted a growing comfort in their musical interaction, a natural call and response developing between Michael's vocals and Prince's guitar, moments of eye contact and subtle nods acknowledging particularly successful harmonic or rhythmic connections. Without overwhelming their distinct individual approaches, they were finding an unexpected common ground in the shared language of music itself. It was during the transition between songs, approximately 30 minutes into this impromptu collaborative set, that the moment occurred that would ultimately define the evening. In the brief pause following their performance of a Prince composition, as the audience's applause began to subside, Prince turned to Michael with an expression that those closest to the stage would later describe as containing both genuine curiosity and gentle challenge. "Michael," he said, his voice carrying clearly through his microphone, "why do you think music matters? If the story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more moments that define the king of pop's extraordinary journey." The question, philosophical rather than personal, fundamental rather than strategic, created an immediate shift in the atmosphere. This wasn't the superficial exchange that might have been expected in such a public setting, nor was it aligned with the careful performance personas both artists typically maintained. It was a genuine inquiry about artistic purpose, posed by one innovative creator to another in front of thousands of witnesses. The audience fell completely silent, collectively holding their breath in anticipation of Michael's response. For several seconds, he was still, his expression suggesting not hesitation but thoughtful consideration of a question that clearly resonated beyond its simple phrasing. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a quality rarely heard in his public addresses, a depth and conviction that emerged when he engaged with subjects of genuine personal significance rather than the practiced responses of promotional appearances. "I believe," he began, his soft tone nonetheless carrying clearly through the perfect acoustics, "that music is one of the few languages that can speak directly to the soul, beyond words, beyond images, beyond all the barriers we create between ourselves." He paused briefly, his gaze moving from Prince to encompass the entire gathering before continuing. "When a melody touches you, it doesn't matter where you're from, what language you speak, how old you are, or what you believe. In that moment, we're connected in a way nothing else can achieve." The simplicity and sincerity of this initial response created a palpable resonance throughout the arena. This wasn't the carefully constructed public statement of a global superstar, but a genuine expression of personal artistic conviction. But Michael wasn't finished. As if Prince's question had opened a channel to his most authentic self, he continued with increasing emotional engagement. I've seen children who couldn't speak find their voice through music. I've watched rooms full of strangers become a single community in the space of one chorus. I felt my own pain transformed into something healing through melody. His voice took on additional strength as he added, "Music doesn't just matter. It's essential. It might be the most direct way we have to remind each other of our shared humanity." As he spoke, something remarkable was happening throughout the Bercy Arena. The assembled dignitaries, media representatives, foundation partners, and children, people of widely varying backgrounds, languages, and experiences, were responding with a visible unity of emotion. There were tears on the faces of hardened journalists. Government officials were nodding with unguarded agreement, and the children present were watching with the particular focus that emerges when young people recognize authentic truth being spoken. Michael concluded with words that connected his philosophical response directly to the Foundation's mission. "And that's why I believe music must be part of healing our world. It opens hearts that might stay closed to speeches or statistics. It creates connection where there was division. It gives voice to those who haven't been heard." He turned directly to Prince, completing the circle of the exchange. "That's why I'm grateful you're here tonight. Different voices, different journeys, but the same understanding of music's power to transform." The silence that followed this response contained a quality rarely experienced in public gatherings, the collective processing of something that had transcended performance to become genuine shared meaning. For several seconds, no one moved, no one spoke, as if breaking the silence would somehow diminish the moment's profound resonance. It was Prince who finally responded, his expression revealing a depth of emotional response rarely displayed in his carefully maintained public persona. "Thank you," he said simply, the two words carrying volumes of meaning in their unadorned sincerity. Without further verbal exchange, Prince began to play, a gentle, almost meditative guitar introduction that created a perfect musical response to the conversation that had just occurred. Michael recognized the harmonic structure immediately, joining with piano accompaniment that complemented rather than mirrored Prince's approach. What emerged was a spontaneous instrumental dialogue that those with musical training present that evening would later describe as extraordinary in both its technical sophistication and emotional depth. Without words, the two artists continued the conversation they had begun verbally, their distinct musical voices finding common ground in a shared vocabulary of feeling and expression. As this improvisational piece developed, Michael began to sing, not with lyrics but with pure vocalization, his voice becoming another instrument in the emerging composition. Prince responded in kind, their vocals weaving together in a harmonically complex yet emotionally direct expression that seemed to embody everything Michael had just articulated about music's unique communicative power. Throughout the arena, the response continued to build, not in volume but in emotional depth. The particular quality of attention had transformed from appreciation to something approaching reverence. 3,000 people collectively experiencing the rare alignment of artistic brilliance with authentic human connection. When the spontaneous composition finally concluded, the response was unlike anything typically experienced in performance settings. The applause began not as the immediate explosion that follows impressive entertainment but as a gradual wave. People seemingly emerging from a state of complete absorption back into awareness of their role as audience. This applause built steadily in both volume and emotional intensity, until the entire arena was on its feet in what would become a 10-minute standing ovation. This wasn't the typical appreciation for excellent performance but a deeper acknowledgement of having witnessed something that transcended entertainment to touch profound human truth. Most remarkable was the genuine emotion visible on the faces of both Michael and Prince, two intensely private artists whose public appearances were typically characterized by carefully maintained performance personas. In this moment, moved by both the exchange they had shared and the audience's response to it, they allowed a rare glimpse of their authentic selves, the real people beneath the iconic images. Their acknowledgement of the ovation reflected this same authenticity. Rather than the practiced performance gestures of seasoned entertainers, They responded with the slightly overwhelmed gratitude of artists who recognized they had just been part of something that had transcended ordinary performance to become genuine communion. As the applause finally began to subside, Michael spoke once more, not to the audience but directly to Prince, though his microphone carried the words throughout the arena. "Thank you for asking the question." Prince's response, equally personal yet publicly shared, "Thank you for answering it." In this simple exchange lay perhaps the truest understanding of what had transpired. A moment when two extraordinary artists, so often positioned as opposites or rivals by external narratives, had found genuine connection through the shared values that underlay their different artistic expressions. And in witnessing this connection, the audience had experienced not just exceptional music, but a demonstration of authentic human communication across perceived boundaries. If you've been moved by this glimpse into a legendary moment between two musical icons, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Together, we keep alive the memory of these rare instances when artistic brilliance transcends expectation to create something truly unforgettable. The Paris event concluded with formal remarks from Foundation representatives, but what remained in the memory of all present was the unexpected artistic and human exchange they had witnessed. In the days that followed, European media coverage focused less on the Foundation's institutional announcements than on the unprecedented collaboration and philosophical dialogue between Michael and Prince. French newspapers described the evening in terms usually reserved for significant cultural moments rather than celebrity appearances. Le Monde's cultural critic wrote, "Beyond the undeniable musical excellence, what transpired at Bercy was a rare moment of authentic artistic communion. A demonstration that beneath the commercial competition and stylistic differences exists a shared understanding of music's essential purpose." For the Heal the World Foundation, the event generated attention far beyond what had been anticipated from a standard launch announcement. Donations and partnership inquiries increased dramatically in the weeks following, with many explicitly referencing the evident sincerity of Michael's artistic philosophy as their motivation for engaging with the organization's mission. Perhaps most significant was the subtle but meaningful shift in how the relationship between Michael and Prince was subsequently portrayed in cultural commentary. The simplistic narrative of rivalry that had defined most media coverage gave way to more nuanced recognition of their different but complementary contributions to musical innovation and cultural impact. Though they would not perform together again before their untimely deaths, Michael in 2009, Prince in 2016. This single evening of unexpected collaboration and philosophical exchange created a new framework for understanding their parallel journeys, not as competitors in a zero-sum game for cultural dominance, but as distinctive voices whose different approaches ultimately served the same fundamental belief in music's transformative power. 30 years later, that evening at the Bercy Arena remains a testament to what becomes possible when artificial narratives give way to authentic exchange. When artists of singular vision find common ground not by compromising their distinctive voices, but by recognizing the shared values that underlie their different expressions. In a world increasingly defined by division and binary opposition, the memory of that night in Paris offers a glimpse of a different possibility. That our most significant cultural figures, beyond the narratives we construct around them, are connected by their commitment to translating essential human truths into forms that reach beyond all barriers, creating moments of genuine connection in a world that often seems designed to keep us separate and alone.